February 14th, 2014, 5 divers in Finland take on a massive challenge. That is to dive through the extremely dangerous underwater cave called Plura Grotta, filled with cold water and sharp rocks near Norway. Their goal is to travel through this cave to reach the other end, the location called Flagget. At first, everything goes well without any problems, but then they enter one of the deepest parts of this cave complex. Welcome, everyone. This is absolute madness. Another thing is these aren't just ordinary divers. They are cave divers. This entire group is going on an extremely difficult route. So this dive becomes quite dangerous, and this is an exploration that takes about 5 hours. This cave isn't just an ordinary cave. This is a cave filled with very dangerous things. The sharp rocks, the pressure inside, and the extremely cold temperature of about 2 degrees Celsius. The divers' suits could tear and they could die right there. They could also die from fear. Here, friends, an extremely mystical incident happens that no one thinks about. Did these 5 divers save their lives? Or did all 5 fall victim to death? Or what actually happened? This cave, called Plura, is an underwater cave beneath a river about 35 meters wide. Inside this cave, there are very old sections. In this cave, there's a section called Flagget. This section is normally about 500 meters deep. Most divers don't go beyond this point. Many divers turn back from here. They are very skilled divers. There are some expert divers who have gone to such deadly places and returned safely. And some don't come back. So these 5 want to explore this entire cave complex. Remember, this is a challenge. So they start this mission at the most difficult part of the cave, that section I mentioned called Flagget. So to get there, it's not just through an ordinary path, but through caves in the rock formations and such things. So who are these 5 divers? Patrick Gronqvist, Jari Huotarinen, Vesa Rantanen, Jari Usimaki, and Kai Kankanen. This team has 2 people named Jari. As I tell this story, I'll call this one Jari H and this one Jari U. They are all well-experienced divers. Patrick and Kai on this team had already explored this cave to some extent about 2 years ago. But for the other 3, this is their first time exploring this cave. So all 5 are now ready to start this task. Hypothermia and equipment failures, dangerous gases. They're entering this game knowing well about such things. What is hypothermia? When diving in such places, friends, the divers experience a condition where body temperature decreases. This is something that normally happens, inevitably. Anyway, the pressure is high when entering water. So in such situations, these temperature-dropping conditions can occur. It normally happens like that. Another thing is this cave is also very cold. So in this cave, this condition called hypothermia inevitably occurs for divers. So this is what's called hypothermia. So this group comes to this place in a small van, and they bring a small trailer behind this van. Underwater scooters, dive tanks, and lots of different tools. They bring such things. So they break the ice layer on top and start diving. This group is led by Patrick. So all 5 don't jump in and start diving at once. They go as 2 groups. The first group has Patrick and the person called Harry H. And the second group has Kai and Jari Wu. So the first group goes, and about 2 hours after they go, the second group goes, but they descend from opposite sides of the cave. They had initially planned to go all 5 together, but they later came to a decision. 3 people descend from one side, and the other 2 descend from the other side of the cave. So this is how they try to traverse this cave. So friends, in that way, this work goes nicely and orderly. The first group goes first, as I said. So Patrick and Hari in it don't face any particular problems. They carry on the work smoothly without trouble. So now, as they keep going, the water inside becomes very dark. So turning on flashlights and such, they slowly go inside. There's a not-so-deep section of this cave. They go to this section. Now they've come down about 250 meters. That is about 820 feet. Quite a lot. So they walk, dive, swim. There's no problem here. Then, remember I said Patrick had explored this cave about 2 years ago? So Patrick had done a good job when he came before. He had tied a rope along this route, so they could easily go down and down holding this rope. So gradually, bit by bit, they approached the most dangerous part of this cave. Remember I said there's a not-so-deep section. From there, 130 meters. That is normally about 425 feet. They have now come down. So this location has sharp rocks, very tight spaces. That is, very narrow openings, very small cramped places they have to travel through. That is, there are various bends. There are U-shaped curves. Now it's breath-holding size things in this cave that they have to deal with. So here a strange scene happens. As Patrick slowly moves forward, when he suddenly turns back and looks, he realizes that Shari H, who came with him, is invisible. And he had seen a small flashlight behind him. This Shari H is stuck in a bend, friends. So Patrick sees this and immediately rushes to save this Shari. This Shari H is terribly frightened. So I don't need to tell you separately why he's frightened. You now know very well how deep they are, and this Jari is breathing very fast. We call this hypercapnia. When breathing hard and fast like this when frightened, normally the carbon dioxide level in human blood increases a lot. This is like a reaction that occurs in human blood to increase the body's energy. So when this excess, produced carbon dioxide, can't be taken into the lung, this condition called hypercapnia occurs. This is also called hypercarbia. Especially for divers, when going very deep, this condition is more likely to occur because normally a diver diving in the ocean doesn't have much chance of this happening because they dive after training, right? Then they know well about the pressure in the water and such things. They have good experience. But unlike the ocean, when exploring a cave complex, when going through narrow passages, when going through such places, normally, inevitably, some fear arises. So all these divers use oxygen tanks called rebreathers. The special feature of these tanks is that they recycle. But when you get scared and start breathing hard and fast, carbon dioxide quickly accumulates in these tanks. Then these tanks don't have enough time to recycle. So this is actually a big problem. So this Jari is now really very frightened. So Patrick tries to give him fresh oxygen, but now the panic is really high. So unfortunately, Jari starts swallowing water bubbles. Because this Jari is very shocked, he can't even fight back. So Patrick becomes very calm. At this time, why? Because this Patrick is someone who came here, someone with good experience. If he panics, if he gets scared, everyone else is finished. So Patrick now needs to help Hari, but by then the man has disappeared. Actually, Patrick couldn't do anything else there at that time. So because Patrick needs help, Patrick turns back and quickly goes up. Normally, when cave divers dive in and come up at once, they need to be very careful about that. They can't just come up hard however they want. There's a pattern for that too. There's a little science to that. If you come up hard like this at once, blood starts to clot. Bubbles start forming in the blood. That is, inside the body, various organs get damaged. Because the body is under great pressure at that time, because when going up from deep water, the pressure decreases quickly. So organs start getting damaged. Normally, they could even die. As I said before, when the human body goes from high pressure to low pressure, you have to go up, giving small bits of time for the body to adjust a bit. That takes a normal amount of time. So this Patrick had been at one depth in one place for more than 20 minutes. So at this time, for Patrick to come up without any decompression issues. Considering the decompression time, it normally takes about 2 hours. But considering the time Patrick struggled to save Hari, Patrick needs a decompression time of about 6 hours and 40 minutes. Otherwise, his body will be harmed. So anyway, he's an experienced diver, so he comes up safely. But because he needs to go quickly, he slowly spends time coming up, and he decides to skip the final decompression checkpoint. Because his oxygen level is also very low, and he needs to go quickly. So because he needs to go quickly, he skips one checkpoint and goes straight up. Now then, the second group properly enters for this. Now everything is going to turn for the worse, because no one in the second group knows that Hari H has died, because they're coming from the other side of the cave. So they don't meet Patrick either. So this diver called Rantanen in this group is the first to see Jari H's body. This body is just blocked and stuck in the cave. Actually, Rantanen has nothing to do here at once now. Because they're not diving in the ocean, they're going through a very narrow cave afterwards. So imagine when going like this, they suddenly see a body blocked. What do? And they know it can't be anyone else. They know it's one of their own. And there's no space to turn around at once here. They can't waste time. Oxygen runs out. And they can't panic either. An absolutely crazy incident. Think about it a bit. Imagine if you're actually diving like this and such a situation comes, how would you actually face it? So he has two options. One is to turn back the way he came. The other is to move Hari aside and go forward. So Rantanen chooses to move Hari aside and go forward. Though I told this story this way, he makes these decisions within seconds. As soon as he sees this body, within seconds he decides whether to go back or not and moves Hari aside and goes. Actually, whichever way you go in this cave is very difficult. They have one chance when turning back. What they saw, the place they came from, the things they saw. They know there's no other advantage in turning. Go the way they came. But it took about 15 minutes for him to move Hari aside from Jari's block and remove him and go past. The guy's bag, tools, bag, such things have to be removed to pass him. So anyway, thank God, this person called Rantanen safely goes the way Patrick went. Next, here come Jari, Yu, and Kai. So they too are now totally stunned seeing this, because they don't even know what actually happened here. Because there's Hari H's body, and Rantanen isn't visible either. So this Jari Yu sees Jari H's body, and he too gets very frightened. So he too gets that condition called hypercapnia, like Jari H. I don't know if this is a mistake in the name. Both Jaris have this problem. So Jari Yu too has the same thing that happened to Jari H. So like that, carbon dioxide increases, becomes poisonous, and he too loses consciousness right there. So Kai, who's here with him, like Patrick, actually has nothing he can really do here. He tries to give fresh oxygen and all, but after panicking here, it's actually hard to do anything. When frightened, breathing more, breathing quickly, these aren't things we think and do. They're things that happen automatically from fear. So you need to be very calm, and it's not good to panic. So you actually need quite a lot of experience to do such work. So this isn't a walk in a cave, it's a dive in a cave in water. So this isn't a game. So this Kai decides. Not like Rantanen. Rantanen passed this and went, right? Kai decides to turn back and go the way he came. So when they go up, considering all the decompression stops, normally after about 11 hours, this Kai manages to get out. So Kai came up in the panic of that last moment. He comes up unable even to think where he came from. So there's a smooth ice layer on top. He came up breaking through this ice layer. So anyway, all three of them thank God and save their lives. So even so, Jari H and Jari U unfortunately die in severe pain. They say dying trapped underwater under that kind of pressure is incredibly painful. Patrick, along with Rantanen and Kai, these three people suffered from decompression sickness, those health conditions I mentioned that occur when you ascend too quickly. So with these kinds of issues, blood-forming bubbles, muscle pain, they made a tremendous effort to reach the surface. Patrick didn't know that Rantanen had barely survived. Patrick also didn't know that Rantanen was coming from the same direction he came from. Anyway, about an hour and a half after Patrick reached the surface, Rantanen also made it up. All three were taken to hospitals. Fortunately, all three recovered without any problems. Of these three, Rantanen, the diver, had the most severe symptoms. According to some reports, he had to be taken to a special chamber in Germany for treatment. But this terrible nightmare wasn't over yet. The police questioned all three divers about what had happened. Now what about the bodies in the water? How would they retrieve them? A special police diving team from Norway was called in to bring back the two divers' bodies. This was an expert team with very experienced cave divers. Among them was someone named Rick Stanton. He had good experience and was considered a British cave rescue expert. He had shown great skill and expertise in many operations. So under his leadership, his team was going to attempt this. There were two others with him. These three dove down to try to retrieve the two bodies. They needed to enter through the Steinugelflaget passage, the same route Patrick had taken. They found both bodies, but they couldn't even move them. Jari H's body was completely stuck, and Jari U's body had fallen on top of Hari H's body and was stuck together with it. The team said this was extremely dangerous work, so they abandoned the mission. They didn't bring back the two bodies. After this incident, the cave was sealed. The general public was never given any opportunity to enter this cave. It was also banned, so the two bodies remained there forever. The police special task force's statement and what they did didn't satisfy the three rescued friends at all. They didn't believe it. They knew very well that the bodies could be retrieved. Patrick had made a promise to Jari H's wife that he would definitely bring back her husband's body somehow. So somehow, these three friends planned another operation to retrieve the two bodies illegally. The three of them were joined by someone who had completely explored this cave, a person named Sami Pakarinen. So he also joined this effort. In total, 17 Finnish divers and 10 members from Norway joined this mission. This was going to be spectacular. This was a 5-day mission planned for March 20th, 2014. They split into two teams. One set entered through the Steinugelflaget side. The other group entered through the Plura Cave side. They had also built a small habitat about 20 feet underwater for rest periods and such situations. They had brought a large amount of equipment, extra oxygen tanks, rebreather tanks, those I mentioned earlier, diving flashlights, clothing sets, first aid kits, scooters. When they came up, many would have decompression issues. Plus, they were going to bring back two bodies. So they scattered about 50 oxygen tanks inside the cave for decompression situations. When coming up, they'd need to stop at various points. Oxygen might run low, so they had scattered about 50 oxygen tanks inside. So Patrick, Sammy, and Kai entered the cave through the Plura Cave side, and Rantanen stayed on the dry side of the cave, meaning on the Plura side, to help. He didn't go into the water because his injuries still weren't fully healed. I mentioned he had the most severe injuries, so due to these problems, he didn't enter the water. After going down about 85 meters, Kai turned back and came up. He said his mental state wasn't ready for this yet. So they found the two bodies. Somehow they found these bodies 46 days after the accident occurred. The two bodies were still in the same condition they were in. First, they freed Harry H. They took Harry H toward the Flaggett side. Other divers helped bring him to the surface. There were no problems during this mission because they were bringing back a dead body and they had scattered oxygen tanks. There was plenty of oxygen for decompression situations, no problems. Anyway, they had been working underwater for about 5 hours. Then the next day they went back to retrieve Harry Yu. They say Harry Yu's body was floating. It was a bit difficult to retrieve his body. Anyway, one report mentions that various pieces of the cave broke off and hit Patrick's body, but Patrick had no problems. Finally, they brought both bodies safely to land. They had done what the police special task force couldn't do. But they had done the work with a good master plan. They had worked successfully. They broke the law, but they reported this to the police. Actually, what they had done was a heroic act in one way. They had broken the law, but they had done something that even the security forces couldn't do. So instead of charges, they received medals. And Patrick received an honorary medal from the Finnish president for his leadership. Then just a few days after these events happened, in the same month of March, friends, this cave was reopened again. So that's the story I wanted to tell you. This story is actually a very intriguing one. And some of the things that happened to them are really scary. Imagine inside this cave. Some of you might have seen a movie called 47 Meters Down. You should definitely watch it. In it too, divers go down. They're in a cage, meaning they go down in a boat with the help of a crane in a cage to see sharks. Anyway, the cage's chain breaks and their cage crashes all the way to the ocean floor. It's an amazing film. I won't say anything beyond that. Watching it is great, and there's another film called 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. In it, there's a cave complex like this where they try to dive. But there are huge sharks inside. So watch both those films. Because the experiences they had are similar to some things, but this real incident didn't involve sharks. In those films, some similar incidents occurred. For those interested in what happens underwater, these kinds of things, it's a good film. This is my first episode. I believe it will be a good episode for people interested in this kind of thing. So to see more stories like this, subscribe to our channel. So what's the lesson we can actually learn from this? Never give up effort, fearlessness, friendship, honesty, and thinking about other people. Look, Patrick goes to retrieve his friend's two bodies without even thinking about his own life. He's not going to retrieve two living people. He's going to retrieve two bodies, putting his own life at risk. So his friendship and the word he gave to others, these kinds of things are really worth learning. If you give someone a promise, fulfilling it exactly that way is a good habit. So we'll meet again with another intriguing topic like this. Until then, may everyone succeed.